am so glad to be here today because I'm very passionate about the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and being a part of such a great cause. I was diagnosed with acute promyelolytic leukemia on March 9, 2009. It was a Monday morning, and while getting ready for work, I noticed that I had blood in my urine, and soon after I had a bloody nose for no reason. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I knew something wasn't right. My husband and I decided that it was best to go to the emergency room to get checked out. On the way, we called my parents to let them know where we were headed and what was going on. At the time, my mother and sister were in Florida for my sister's spring vacation, and I assured them that everything would be okay and to just stay put until we knew exactly what was wrong with me. We arrived at the ER where my father met my husband and me, and I had routine blood tests done to try and identify what was causing me to bleed so easily. After what seemed like hours of waiting, they informed me that my blood platelet count, which is your blood's ability to clot, and my white blood cell count, which is your body's ability to fight infection, were extremely low. When these counts are low like this, there is a high risk for severe bleeding. For example, if I had accidentally slipped or received a paper cut, my body wouldn't have the ability to stop bleeding. The ER had made an appointment for me to go to a specialized blood hematology clinic. This clinic would be able to perform more comprehensive tests at a higher level to pinpoint why my counts were so low. At this time, since we didn't really know what was wrong with me, my husband headed back to work, while my father and I headed off to the next appointment. At the hematology clinic, I had my blood drawn again, and we waited for the results. The doctor came into his office where we were waiting and said to me what no one ever wants to hear: "We think you have leukemia." My father and I were sitting there with our mouths dropped by the shock of what we had just heard, and we immediately grabbed each other's hands. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't want to believe it, but this was happening, and I needed to do something about it. I looked at my father's worried face, and I told him everything was going to be okay, not only to reassure him, but in hearing myself say it out loud, I believed it too. The doctor called my mother and told her the news, and she and my sister were on the first flight home. I called my husband and told him that I had leukemia, and his first reaction was pure disbelief. I told him what we knew and that we were headed to Dana-Farber in Boston to have final tests done to receive confirmation of my diagnosis. I remember when we left the hematology clinic that I climbed into my dad's Suburban with him, and I leaned my head up against the front seat window trying to process what had just been said to me. I was going to look up information on what I was up against because I had always known that leukemia was cancer and that it wasn't good, but that was it. After picking up my phone, I realized I didn't want to know anything because I just didn't want it to be true, and I wanted to hold on to that last bit of hope for as long as I could. We arrived at Dana-Farber, and I had my blood drawn for the third time that day, along with my first bone marrow biopsy. This allowed the doctors to see at a molecular level what was going on with my blood and why my counts were so low. After the test, the doctors confirmed what my previous blood tests had shown, that I did in fact have leukemia. We were still waiting on the results to identify what type of leukemia I had, but what we did know is that I needed to begin treatment right away. On Monday, March 9th, 2009, the same day I was diagnosed, I spent my first night at Brigham and Women's Hospital. I realized just how scary leukemia is. Prior to this day, I wasn't really feeling sick. I was young, healthy, and active. I was more tired than normal, but I didn't really think anything of it, and I did have several bruises across my body, which for me isn't quite out of the ordinary since I am a bit of a klutz. But there was truly no rhyme or reason why I got this disease. One day there was a change in my DNA where 2 of my chromosomes switched, and it basically short-circuited the healthy production of my blood cells, primarily affecting my white blood cell and blood platelet count. The first thing that I said to my family after being in the hospital room was, "Don't leave me here alone." And they didn't. My family was there for me every day, taking turns spending the night and taking the best care of me along with the doctors and nurses. I began treatment the next day, which consisted of 7 straight days of intensive chemotherapy, which caused me to be very susceptible to any illnesses since my immune system was so weak due to the chemotherapy treatments. My family had transformed my hospital room for me by taking pictures of my backyard at home and blowing them up to poster size and hanging them in the windows, so I really felt like I was home. I received countless cards from friends and family, and they hung around the room as reminders of all those at home rooting for me. My husband would bring in pictures and videos of our dogs, which I think I miss more than anything, and it made me so happy to see them. While undergoing treatment, the infusions completely wiped out my immune system, causing me to have a wide array of side effects, one of which was losing all of my hair, which called me crazy. At first, I was excited. I think because it was something new and different, and the idea of going shopping for a whole new hairstyle sounded fun to me. Brigham and Women's had a wig shop at the hospital where you could go and you could try on wigs and they would style them for you. This was the first outing that I got to go on while in the hospital, and it was fun going shopping and trying on the new hairstyles with my mom and sister there helping me pick out the best one. Time went on in the hospital and my body began to recover from the initial rounds of chemotherapy. And as you can imagine, I was beginning to go a little stir-crazy. By day 21, I was determined. The doctors had been saying in the prior days that it would be any day now that I would be ready to be released. On March 30th, 2009, I knew my doctors would be making their rounds that day, and I would have the possibility of going home. So I decided to make sure that I looked my best, hoping to somehow impress them to show them that it was time for me to go. I had put on my new wig, my makeup, and my best hospital clothes, which at the time consisted of my pajamas. And I remember pleading to my mother before they came, telling her I couldn't spend one more day here. My doctor walked into the room, and the first words out of his mouth were, "You don't belong here." And as you can imagine, those words were music to my ears. I was getting out, and in a few hours, I was fully packed up, discharged, heading home, so happy. But this was still only the beginning, and I would still need to continually drive into Dana-Farber for treatment and checkups. By mid-April, about a month and a half after I was diagnosed, I was in remission, and this was an amazing feeling. Now the next step in treatment was to seek out and kill the residual leukemia cells that were not killed by the treatment I received while in the hospital. To do this, I had to receive 4 different rounds of chemotherapy over the next 7 months. This meant I went to Dana-Farber for a total of 56 chemotherapy treatments. For each visit, I would travel into Boston and spend about 3 to 4 hours at the infusion center. During this time, I again realized how much of a support system that I had. My parents, sister, husband, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and friends all took turns taking me to my appointments and keeping me company while I was there. This treatment again caused its own set of side effects and caused me to lose the little hair that I had begun to grow back. After I was finished with the infusion chemotherapy, I was finally on my last stage of treatment, which meant I would no longer need to go to Dana-Farber on a regular basis. I was now on a regimen of 3 different types of chemotherapy pills, along with various supplemental pills to replace the electrolytes and minerals that I was losing as a result of treatment. In total, this meant I was taking about 400 pills each month and would continue to do so for the next year. The side effects of this phase of treatment were much less than the infusion treatment, and I was able to begin going back to work and really getting to my life back before leukemia. On October 26, 2010, I took my last dose of medication, and I couldn't have been happier. Being diagnosed with leukemia was almost like a page out of a book being read to me from a story that had already been written, and I was just along for the ride. Throughout my ordeal, I learned so much about myself and those around me. I met amazing doctors and nurses that took remarkable care of me, and I am so grateful for my amazing husband, parents, and sister who gave me strength during one of the hardest experiences that I have ever gone through, and they allowed me to never be afraid. I always knew that I would be okay because of them. Don't get me wrong, I had days when I felt sicker than I ever have before. I was miserable, and yet my family still stood by my side supporting me. When a person is diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, it is not only the person that is diagnosed, but the entire family. We became a team with one goal of getting me healthy again. I know that even after all of the treatments and the side effects that they cause, that I wouldn't have changed anything. This has changed my life in so many positive ways that I think the overall experience and what I have taken from it is worth the pain that I went through. It has given me the opportunity and inspiration to help others going through what I went through, and to continue to help raise funds to find a cure for so many others out there still looking for one. I feel so lucky to be able to participate in the Light the Night walks. It has given me a sense of purpose out of all the uncertainty that comes with a cancer diagnosis. It is a way that people have the ability to come together and make a difference in so many lives, my own included. In 2009, my family and I formed Tilton Ski Team, and we participated in our first walk, and we have been participating since. I am a key example of how research and knowledge saves lives. 50 years ago, acute promyelolytic leukemia had a 100% mortality rate and no form of treatment. Since then, acute promyelolytic leukemia has come a long way to now have an established treatment plan with a 90% cure rate. This disease has come full circle in such a short time, which is astounding to me and motivates me even more in my participation with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. There are so many people out there looking for what has been given to me, a cure. And I hope through the continued participation and support of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society that this one day becomes a reality. I thank you all very much for listening to my story today.